So we received this request on how you might create something along these lines, basically emulating this waveform recreation. And luckily, waveform generation is a really simple process that has been sort of mastered by After Effects, and you can pretty easily put it together in between 5 and 10 minutes. If you just follow these steps. So I'm going to start over here. This is the one that I created already, and it's sort of a facsimile of that. I based this off of the Parker Quartet's recording from when they were shooting in our studio some months ago, around February, and basically I just made it as simple as I can conceivably can. Now you can scale this up or down, you can move it around, and then oftentimes you also want to be putting it over top of a transparent background with some faded out thing in the background or text underneath it. Now the text underneath it doesn't need a transparent background, but the faded background would. So if you want to do that, keep that in mind, and I'll show you how to do that at the very end of this when we're ready to send it off. So I'm going to start over here. I just dropped an empty composition into my project here, and so I called it Waveform Tutorial. I recommend naming everything as frequently as you can with these programs. And I also brought in this waveform, this like audio clip from the Parker Quartet. So I'm just going to drag that down here and play it back, and it plays fine. So from here, we want to bring in a solid, and that'll be the one other thing in the timeline. Everything else is generated from there. So we need a solid and an effect, and that's it. So we're going to go to Layer, New, and Solid. Drop that in. It doesn't matter what color it is. You can just leave it as is. And then the last thing that you want to do, and you want to make sure that this is selected down here, is go up to Help and just type in Waveform. If you can find it in the drop-down menus. The very, very easiest way to find it is always just to search it. So that's oftentimes what I do. And so it'll give you this. And when I play it back, it's not going to show me anything. Basically, we haven't identified what sound we want it to play yet. So our first thing that we want to do is drop this down, go down to Parker Quartet source clip, and we're good to go. So now we have a form of waveform, and we just want to stylize it at this point, which is all the easy steps. So the first thing that I'll usually do is choose my color, and in this case I just want it to be plain white on black because I think it's a nice look. And there's sort of the fill color and the stroke color, or in this case it's the inside color and the outside color. You can also go ahead and select which kind of waveform you want. You can do it in dot form, that's a classic one, or digital is the various different lines. And then from there, you just want general form stylizing options. So displayed sample and maximum height up here are going to be the two that you're going to pay attention the most to. And so you can just grab them and drag them until they're about the size you want them to be. And that looks pretty good to me if they're going to situate right in the center of the screen. So, and then display sample is how many different samples it takes per second. So it can be 120, so it'll be 120 across this, or we can drop it down to just 23. And so if you want it to be more complicated or less complicated, that's just a really good way to play it back. And then there's line stylization, which is just the thickness and softness. If you want your lines to be physically thicker, with a nice fade on the side, you can increase the thickness and drop and increase the softness. Or if you want the lines to be sort of these pure white lines, kind of like they have in here, then all you have to do is just increase the thickness there. And so from here, you're pretty much done. You have a waveform. It looks pretty good. When you play it back, it proves the concept that you're trying to apply to it. And so you want to export this. And if you're going to export this for use in Premiere, you'll just want to pay attention to one thing in the export settings. So if I go File, Export, and Add to Render Queue, it'll open up these different options, and you're just going to want to select Lossless. And under Channels, you're going to want to drop it down and choose RGB and Alpha. Now, if that doesn't work, you can also try the alpha channel, but I'm fairly sure that it should be RGB and alpha. Basically, the alpha channel is the transparent channel that plays through the back of it. And then from there, in format options, you just want to drop this down and either choose animation or Apple ProRes 422, although animation should be fine. So from there, you just hit OK and hit render up here, and you're golden. At that point, you should get a video with a transparent channel on the background, and then you can like overlay that on top of your sort of faded out background, displaying whatever content the discussion is about.